Hey friend, Chris Vandeviver here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. With only a couple weeks left here in 2021, we're doing a countdown to 2022 where I'm sharing the top 10 reasons why I think different types of users should try out Logic Pro. And this week's video is going to be the top 10 reasons why I think mix engineers should check out Logic Pro in 2022. Now, I would say it's a pretty common misconception that Logic Pro is only for musicians or producers, for those of us who are creating music, not necessarily mixing or editing music. And I would say that's simply not true. I've been using Logic Pro for years, mixing for clients, editing for clients, and it's treated me well, and it's only gotten better and better as the years have gone by. So I want to share that with you today if you are a mix engineer and maybe you're just even the least bit interested in Logic Pro. And side note, if you're interested in checking out Logic Pro, Apple has a free 90-day trial. It's not in the App Store. You have to go to Apple's website for Logic Pro. I'll include a link to that web page down below in the description so you can check it out. 90 days, all the plugins, all the features, nothing is withheld from you. You got 3 months to check out the app, so I highly recommend it. All right, we're going to start with the big guns, the most recent news, and that is that spatial mixing with Dolby Atmos is now fully integrated and native to Logic Pro, meaning that you don't need a separate application for rendering. You don't have to manually route your 3D objects. I mean, all that stuff is taken care of for you. The Atmos renderer is built right into Logic. You literally just change a setting. It's like a flip of a switch, and your project goes from stereo to Atmos. All your channel strips will switch to a surround bed format. You can then switch channel strips to 3D objects. Their panning and everything related to 3D objects are automatically routed to the renderer. Any automation is taken care of. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Also, plugin support is now up to 7.1.4 and also multi-mono plugins, which we'll explore later in this video. Many of the Logic plugins have been updated to support height channels in these more immersive style of speaker arrays. Some notable mentions are the updates to the Tremolo plugin, which is just amazing what it can do in terms of adding movement to your tracks. Also, Space Designer, which is Logic's awesome convolution style reverb. It always had surround spaces, but there's also the inclusion of Circle B format surround spaces, which when they recorded the impulse in these different spaces to, convolve into Space Designer, they made sure to include a halo of microphones to capture the immersive height of those spaces as well. And once you're done mixing your Atmos mixes, Logic Pro easily exports the necessary master files, the ADM BWF files, for distribution. Number 2 is that Logic Pro supports ARA 2.0 or ARA 2.0. I prefer to spell it out. Obviously, many mix engineers, post-production engineers, etc. rely on some pretty specialized software for specialized tasks. And that's why Logic Pro supports ARA 2.0 for things like Celemoni's Melodyne, SynchroArt's Vocaline, and also Isotope's RX. All you have to do is open an ARA instance of any of these specialized plugins in the first slot of a track in Logic Pro, in the mixer, in the inspector, and then you just hit play for a split second. Once you hit play, the audio is immediately transferred to that ARA 2.0 plugin, and from there you can adjust, pitch correction in Melodyne or gang together backing vocals to the main vocal and tighten everything up, or even make adjustments and clean up specific noises in the audio using the brand new Isotope RX spectral editor, which is ARA compatible for Logic Pro. Number 3 is how quick and easy it is to organize your mix sessions in Logic Pro. It's really easy to talk about these huge features like spatial mixing and, be really enamored with them, but sometimes the smallest and most mundane details can be the most important to us when we're mixing. And this one topic alone could be a top 10 video all to itself. So I'm going to fly through these, but I think Logic Pro makes it so easy to organize your mix sessions. Just starting from a blank canvas, if you go to the display preferences in Logic, you can make sure that Logic gives each individual track its own unique color, also any marker its own color. You can also specify if the regions should follow the track color or have their own independent color. So once you drag audio files into your project, they're immediately color-coded for you. And if you're working with a huge session, you can have Logic show you the track and bar numbers while you scroll, so you always know where you are in your sessions. It's super easy to gain stage using the normalize region gain function, where you can specify that each region's level is adjusted in terms of either loudness or peak value. And with a simple click of a button, every single region in your project will be adjusted in terms of their level to that specified loudness or peak value. You can also easily organize your tracks into collapsible and expandable folders known as track stacks, and there's two different ones. There are summing stacks where you can adjust the volume of the entire group, mute, solo, and also process the group as a whole. And we also have folder stacks, which are basically VCA faders, where you're able to adjust the relative volume of the entire group and again, collapse and expand the entire folder. But of course, if you prefer to use VCA faders, specifically and not just in this folder type of structure, Logic Pro also has VCA faders. It also allows you to group multiple tracks together using a grouping function and even allow each channel strip to be part of multiple groups. And you can be as granular as you prefer as to what functions of each channel strip are part of the group and which functions are not. But not only that, if you want to keep organized, there are also project and track notes in a separate notepad, which appears in the right-hand sidebar. And you can even load photos into the notepad and even stylize text as well. And after all that, Logic Pro also allows you to save different versions of your projects in the same project folder or package. So instead of going to File and Save As and having, multiple folders of the same project, all different versions laying around your hard drives, instead you can go to File, Project Alternative, New Alternative, and save this new version that you want to work from within the same exact project folder or package. And you can then flip between the different versions easily right within one project. Number 4 is that Logic Pro has an awesome suite of features and tools that allow you to edit your tracks and regions. A common criticism levied against Logic Pro, which I don't really agree with. First off, Logic Pro has a smart tool, but it's called Click Zones. And if you go to the general preferences for editing, you can turn on Click Zones for the marquee tool, the fade tool, for the pointer, etc., so that when you hover your mouse over different aspects of a region, you get different tools for editing that region. From moving regions to making edits to the regions to adding fades. Logic Pro also has an awesome system for pitch correction and time stretching for editing. There's Flex Pitch, which is just like Melodyne in that you can edit on a per note basis with monophonic instruments, and you can edit everything from vibrato to the gain of the notes to the center pitch, the drift in and out, and formant. Flex Time is the time stretching algorithm that lets you easily make timing adjustments and edits to tracks that sound great, that sound natural, from multi-mic drums using the slicing mode to monophonic for things like bass and vocals, and polyphonic for more complex instruments such as guitars and piano. I love Flex Time because it saves me from having to chop up regions and having to add fades, etc. And also Logic Pro has slip editing as well, where you can adjust the timing of the audio content within a region without moving the region. Number 5 is how easy it is to route and process your audio as separate signals or route your audio outside of your interface to hardware. Number 1, the send fields and the output fields allow you to route not only to a bus, to an auxiliary channel strip, but you can also directly route your audio through a send, through an output to the interface outputs on your interface to hardware if you want, and then you can just record it back in. Or you can use the I/O plugin, which allows you to pipe hardware directly into the audio effects slots in the channel strip for one of your tracks. So if you want to pipe in an EQ or a compressor that's in your rack of gear, you can. And the I/O plugin also has a ping feature that will measure and compensate for the latency of the audio being sent to your hardware back into Logic Pro. Logic Pro also offers dual mono instances of plugins, and it's not just the native plugins, this could be third-party plugins as well, meaning that when you load a dual mono instance of a plugin, you can set that plugin to either allow you to process the left and right signals independently or the mid and side signals independently. And if you're working in surround or Atmos, Logic also supports multi-mono instances of plugins, where you can gang together different speakers in your speaker array to groups and then process each of those groups independently. There's independent panning for send, so you can pan your guitar to the left, but pan the guitar being sent to the reverb to the right. And there's also selection-based processing where you can commit an effect or an entire channel strip worth of effects to one particular section of an audio region. So if you want to add a reverb tail just at the end of the vocals, you can do that. Number 6 is the massive track counts that Logic Pro can afford you. Logic Pro can support up to 1,000 stereo audio channel strips, 1,000 software instrument channel strips, aka MIDI, 1,000 external MIDI tracks, 1,000 auxiliary channel strips, and also 256 buses. Of course, this depends on how powerful your Mac is, but that's a lot of tracks. Number 7 is take folders and track alternatives. Take folders is Logic Pro's own system for managing all your different recorded takes in an easy folder that you can expand and collapse whenever. And then you can select just different takes by clicking on them, or you can use quick swiping to select phrases or words or entire sections that will be promoted to the top comp. It's so easy, it's so simple. You don't have to chop up regions, you don't have to manually add fades or, any of that stuff. It's all taken care of for you. But if you're more used to working with a playlist style of editing and comping together your tracks, Logic Pro has track alternatives. Just by going to the recording preferences, you can tell Logic Pro to, instead of record to a take folder, you can record to track alternatives. And then as you record each new take will be committed to its own track alternative track lane. And then you can show and hide the track alternatives. You can edit different sections of your track alternatives and promote them to a brand new track alternative. You could treat that as your top level comp. Number 8 is the high quality native plugins that come with Logic Pro. There's a whole bunch of plugins that you can use for mixing and working on your projects. I'm just going to name a couple. First is the Channel EQ, which is a transparent, high-quality digital parametric band EQ, which provides you with 8 separate bands for processing and EQing your tracks. It has a high-resolution spectral analyzer. It even provides oversampling if you want to preserve the top end of your tracks. And you can even process the left side independent from the right or the mids independent from the sides with each instance of a Channel EQ. Second, we have Logic's compressor, which is well known for the quality of its compression and sound. The compressor provides you with 7 different compressor types, 6 of which are based on analog hardware compression types. It has a mix knob so you can process your compression in parallel. It also has side chaining, and it even has distortion if you want to zhuzh up your tracks a little bit. We also have Chromaverb, which is a beautiful and amazing sounding algorithmic reverb. It has 14 room types with damping EQ and output EQ and modulation and lots of control over the stereo width and other parameters. The De-esser2, which is my favorite for de-essing, it has a relative mode, so it only focuses on the sibilance of a track and not just everything that crosses the threshold. The Match EQ, I can't think of a single DAW that comes with a Match EQ, so you can match the spectral content of one track to another. And the multimeter, so you can keep tabs on the spectral balance of your tracks, the left to right distribution, correlation, loudness, peak values, and RMS. Number 9 is Logic Remote for iOS. Logic Remote is a free app that you can download to your iPhone or your iPad. And though it is very much a creative tool for launching live loops or playing keys or drum pads, it also provides you with a multi-touch mixer so that you can work with multiple faders and mutes and solos and plugin parameters like you would with a console or a mixer right in front of you. You can manage your mix sessions or your recording sessions from across the room. You don't even have to be in front of your computer. You just need to have your iPad connected to the same Wi-Fi network as your Mac. It has a key command launcher so you can launch common commands very easily right from your iPad. And of course, you can even write automation using your iPad as well. And number 10, easily render, bounce, share, export all of your tracks, stems, whatever in Logic Pro. Easily export tracks out of Logic Pro. Just select each track that you want to export. Go to File, Export, Tracks as audio files. And if you're using track stacks in Logic, you can just select those track stacks and then export. And those track stacks will be exported as stems. So the drum stem or the bass stem, vocal stem, etc. You can also export your projects as an AAF file. All audio file assets will be included. Where they're placed along the timeline will be preserved, as well as any automation that you've written, and easily share just a bounce or the entire project using the airdrop and mail drop functions under Share. If your project is a package, all of the assets will be zipped up with that project file. And if you're sharing with mail, if the project is too big to be attached to an email because of its file size, Logic Pro will create a download link so your collaborator or whoever can easily download the entire project as a whole. And there you have it, my top 10 reasons why I think mix engineers, post-production engineers, whoever, should check out Logic Pro. And again, I'll include a link to the 90-day free trial. I really think you should check it out. Logic Pro is awesome. All you need is a Mac, and you're off to the races. And also, it's been about 8 years of free updates. Just had to throw that in as well. So if this video has been helpful for you, I highly recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel, Why Logic Pro Rules, or subscribing on the website itself, WhyLogicProRules.com. Every week I'm posting new videos, new emails, and posts to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Thanks so much.